Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Wake Magic gameplay. This time around we're on Death Pass playing as the Wood Elves against the forces of the Vampire Coast, and this is a matchup that really, in my opinion, favors the Wood Elves. But previously I have run builds that were very kite heavy with the Wood Elves and just simply focused on overwhelming my opponent with, well, kind of kiting my opponent to death and just being a pain in the posterior that way. But after doing some tests with Waystalkers and I also wanting to bring some magic, I decided to rework the build a bit and go with a more aggressive, just straight push build and rely on Glade Guard a little bit. And I wanted to give it a shot here. So going over the build here, we did bring an Ancient Tree Man to get ourselves some casting. Now, the other option was Durthu, but I figured that with we really want heals on our Lord, and so an Ancient Tree Man was the way to go. Obviously, if you bring Orion, you can do this, just do double Waystalker and Orion, but then you are completely giving out magic, which I don't know if you want to do. The Ancient Tree Man also does have some other benefits. He's got a lot more HP than Orion. He's got better melee defense as well, so it's definitely not bad in that sense. You do get Regrowth, we do get Earthblood, of course, Life Bloom, and a Power Stone. We did strip him down a whole bunch. He also does have Physical Resist and Missile Resist, so against most Vampire count shooting, it might seem that he's going to be really susceptible, but the Vampire Coast is going to be losing 35% of their damage against him from basically everything, except like the Shade Wraith deck gunners. For the rest of the build, we do have two Waystalkers who are Vanguard deployed forward. I figured if my opponent has like Queen Bess over here, or if he's got cannons, or in this case, a Gunnery White, or units that we can pick off, having the Waystalkers this far forward is going to be good because it's going to let us immediately unload and take out these critical targets before anything happens. Against deck gunners as well, these guys will do well. They can kill multiple models. You can get like 2 models or 3 models a hit, and with that you wipe out a unit of deck gunners relatively quickly, relatively cheaply. So all really good. Plus they've got Air of Kurnus, so they're all in all very, very potent. For the main line, it is simply 4 units of Dryads. Nothing fancy there. They're going to be able to mulch through the lower end trash troops like these Zombie Pirate deckhands with pole arms. They can deal with bats. They can overwhelm backline Zombie Pirate gunnery mobs, all that stuff. They're immune to psychology, which is important. So all in all, just I think a good unit to run here. Your other options really Eternal Guard. I think War Dancers are just too expensive and not really worth it in that situation. For the rest of it, well, 4 units of Glade Guard make up the first row of shooting. This is the first row, so we got 4 units of Glade Guard. These guys, cheap-ish by Wood Elf standards, not cheap by anybody else's standards, to be honest, except maybe like Dwarves. But obviously, good amount of ammunition, good amount of missile damage. They actually do 18 and 4, so they're on par with crossbows. And, you know, they can shoot on the move, so they can actually advance on your opponent while firing, and the 170 range does mean they outrange the vast majority of Vampire Coast shooting. Second line is 3 units of Deepwood Scouts, so these guys will be providing additional non-AP fire. Very useful in my opinion. That once again, they've got the same damage profile as the Glade Guard, but they can fire 360, and they're stocked. So my opponent, if he decides to focus anything down here, it's going to be the Glade Guard. We focus the shooting. Finally, we do have 2 units of Way Watchers, providing a bit of an AP goon squad. In case my opponent goes super heavy on some sort of armored targets, I figured, you know, 2 Way Watchers can't hurt. For my opponent's build, he went with Count Noctilus, who's kind of the go-to in this situation. He does have the Wraithstorm as well as his summon with Ross Moondial, Arcane Conduit, and then he's got the Zombie Summon as well as good old Invocation of Nehek, the Hunger, Smoke and Mirrors, and Curse of Undeath. Now, alongside him there is a Gunnery White who's going to be providing a whole bunch of upgrade buffs. He's got his more powders, which replenishes ammo. He's got enchanted ballistics and Deadeyes, which is going to be buffing these Black Spot quite a lot. But immediately we're going to push forward with our Waystalkers, looking to get some shots in on this guy and whittle him down quickly. Alongside him, my opponent actually got into something a little interesting, something I actually like in this matchup, but I don't see very often, and that's a Moongull Haunter. He's, of course, stocked. He's got built-in 30% missile resist, which is really nice against Wood Elves. The Hunger, he has Frostbite, which lets you, or Chilling Aura, which lets you slow down enemies. Just all in all, a very useful unit, in my opinion. And he can mulch through infantry pretty efficiently. The front line, as we discussed before, simply a bunch of pole arms. These guys, not amazing. They will get destroyed by Dryads, but, you know, they can bog me down and buy time. Alongside that, 3 units of bats to disrupt backlines and harass, two handguns, one of which is Black Spot, so they have some anti-large wrapped up, and then 3 units of deck droppers with handguns. A bit of an interesting choice. I wouldn't really recommend them against Wood Elves, but I guess if you want some mobile AP, they could be okay. And you can see the Gunnery White already taking damage. He's already lost about 400 or so HP in the first 2 shots from the Waystalkers, losing another like 200 there. Just getting pounded. So he's definitely not having the best day. And now the Glade Guard, who I left on a fire at will, are going to start peppering down these troops, which is nice. Unfortunately for me, though, my opponent does get a summon off, which is really frustrating. So we're going to have to turn around here to interdict them and deal with them. But Glade Guard have respectable melee stats, 27 melee defense. And do keep in mind the Zombie Pirate Gunnery Deckhand summon only has 10 and 8. So they're going to struggle to do much, even the Glade Guard. And so we're going to be able to hold out here and start peppering down Count Noctilus. And you can see the fire's just going to start raining in. Count Noctilus standing still, my opponent pushing a little too far forward, and in a matter of seconds, Count Nocti is going to start falling apart. My opponent is committing some bats to the back line here, and this is actually a big misplay on my part. I should have pushed these Dryads forward, and I completely just forgot about them like a total moron. But what can you do? Count Noctilus, though, just getting annihilated by that volley of fire. The Way Watchers are now pitching in their weight. The Way Stalkers, the Deepwood Scouts, everything pouring in, and he just crumbles like a 9-pin. Leadership tanks, and he just disintegrates. So goodbye, Noctilus. By the time my opponent's bats get into the fray, it's way too late. And one of the interesting or cool things is that honestly, because of how bad the stats are, most of these zombies, they're not actually going to do all that much to my units, as long as we just run away. And don't stay in there forever. Deepwood Scouts even, much less Glade Guard, who has better melee defense, are not going to take much damage from Zombie Pirate Deckhand, so that's useful. Over here, we are actually going to throw our Waystalkers into the fight against these Fellbats, because Waystalkers are actually respectable in melee now. You can see, look at their stats, they've actually got 55 melee attack, so they're actually going to be hitting bats pretty effectively and really dispatching them with ease. In the meantime, the Morngull does get in here. He's going to start compromising things, and we can push out our Dryads to intercept these Zombie Pirate Deckhands. These guys are basically gone. The Ancient Tree Man is helping slow this to tide here, buying time for the Dryads that I forgot about to get in there. Huge misplay, like I said before. And unfortunately, he's taking some huge amounts of aggro, but you can really see. So this is a lot of damage. Like it's a lot of damage. There's 3 units of Deck Dropper handguns, 2 units of Zombie Pirate handguns, and they're all focused on this one Tree Man. And they're still taking forever to bring him down, which is pretty nuts. The guy does the 35% missile resist is really, really nifty here. Over here, in the meantime, the Morngull does dive through, and you can see he's immediately chipping away at this Waystalker, but he's running into the Elves, and so immediately gets crossfired. The Hounds here actually failing against the Glade Guard, which is kind of sad, and the crossfire here pouring in as Morngull just gets destroyed by all the fire from the Glade Guard, from the Way Watchers, from the Deepwood Scouts, everything just pouring in. And as my opponent finally does breach the front line, he can remove some of these Dryads. We're going to be able to pull these Dryads into the flank, because they did win their flank. There was no Morngull there, so they did well. And in the meantime, Deck Dropper's getting wrecked. The Tree Man just wanders off. He's got hip-hop regrowth on himself. He's going to be able to heal up a whole bunch. In the meantime, the Deck Droppers with handguns are getting shredded by sustained fire from all this shooting blob. And this isn't even well deployed. Like, these guys are all getting in each other's way and probably obstructing their shots half the time. But still, they're able to force these guys back, force them to reconsider their life decisions. And in the meantime, my opponent's army is just collapsing. There's really not very much left. Even these Dryads are going to rally. The front line here held up by a single unit of Dryads who are up to 55 kills in a matter of seconds. And once this infantry block dies, you can see this guy actually almost went down here once again to some focus fire, but he's just going to be able to meander away. Once this melee block goes away, we're going to be able to focus out the rest of these guys. The Waystalkers can pick off the Gunnery White, and it's going to be GG for the forces of Wood Elves. So a pretty straightforward and pretty, if I do say so, decisive victory for the Wood Elves, but despite misplays where I, for example, forgot some Dryads, which sucks. But I do think this is a really bad matchup for the Vampire Coast. I do think that my opponent's build here was not necessarily what you want to run against Wood Elves. I think you'd also need to be much more cautious with your Lords. Count Noctilus is not a bad choice in this matchup, I think, because he can be very aggressive. You can push forward. Luther is actually an interesting choice as well that I've heard is really good. But I haven't personally used him or seen it used. But Count Noctilus, good choice, but you cannot have Count Noctilus push within range of the shooting, because Count Noctilus only has 75 armor, which sounds like a lot or sounds like decent, but it's not really against this much shooting. It's just going to get overwhelmed and you're going to be dead. This is why High Elf Mass Daka works too, even though their archers are even more budget than the Wood Elf ones. But Count Nocti, he's just not able to close the distance, and he's going to get gunned down. If your opponent has this much Daka, and that's really the way to go for Wood Elves, is breaking a lot of shooting. I think you want more width. I think perhaps bringing a few more mobile troops as well is a good option. I don't think Deck Droppers are a good choice in this matchup. Would also have a lot of shooting. They're going to swat you out of the sky. They have Waystalkers as well, which can potentially kill a model or two, I think, a shot. So definitely not what you want to be dealing with. Gunnery White also I wouldn't say good choice in this matchup. Waystalkers, once again, they're so good at picking off individual models. You don't want low armored troops. Potentially Noctilus on foot as well can be a decent choice here, but you just don't want those squishy single models available for the Waystalkers to snipe. The Waystalkers will annihilate a Gunnery White, they'll annihilate a Vampire Captain, Even a fleet admiral, honestly, will suffer against Waystalkers. So do keep that in mind. But yeah, this build, I kind of wanted to demonstrate, kind of wanted to test it out. The Ancient Tree Man actually pretty useful with the Earthblood and some holding force, and then be able to just stall these blobs of troops. The Dryads, you know, they did their job. The Glade Guard, surprisingly a good unit. If your opponent brings mortars, this can go much worse. But, you know, if you're able to just overwhelm your opponent's line, it could still work well. The Waystalkers can also pick off mortars somewhat effectively. It depends a bit on map. If the map's a bit more cramped but long, it can be more difficult because the Waystalkers are easier to zone out. If the map's like wide and open, you've got plenty of maneuver room, the Waystalkers can get some good work done. So there's a bit of leeway there, but Waystalkers definitely got some good value here. We're able to pick off that gunnery white and then stall the bats, help the archers escape and that sort of stuff. So definitely some fun stuff. Regardless, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it entertaining and hopefully gave you some ideas on this matchup if you're playing as Wood Elves. If you're playing as a Vampire Coast, and I guess, you know what, maybe I should show something there real quick. Because before I hop out, I figured, you know, maybe show a build here with Vampire Coast. So let's say you are playing as Vampire Coast. Let's say you do want to bring Count Noctilus, okay? Which maybe you do, which is fine. I don't necessarily think he's a bad choice. Ditch all those spells. You obviously want the Moon Dial because you do need your summons. This, you know, a decent comp, but you do now have a very expensive Lord, so do be wary of that. A front line you can make with, like, Zombie Pirate Deckhands, honestly. You can just run with, like, this, maybe some pole arms in there. I wouldn't bother with handguns. If you're going to bring any shooting, I would bring Deck Gunners, which can be decent, or Necrofex Colossi for the zoning, or otherwise Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mobs, which is another thing. So you can bring a lot of Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mobs, and this is interesting. These guys actually fire on the move, which is kind of silly, but they do fire on the move. For some reason, Free Company, who are alive, and it would make more sense there, cannot, but what can you do? So you can bring a whole bunch of these guys. Then, if you want, you can bring like an extra Necrofex in there. Maybe you can even bring 2 Necrofexes if you really want to, if that's what floats your goat, because I do believe you can bring 3 onto the board, but let's say you only bring 2. Then you can bring some Scurvy Dogs, get you some zoning options, and, you know, then we could throw in some more Pirate Deckhands. And, you know, this is quite a lot of stuff that we can now throw in at our opponents. And you can, this is if you want to go with a more aggressive build, like what my opponent brought there. You can also go campy and simply bring a whole bunch of mortars if you want. So you can go aggressive, push at your opponent, just go with mass pirate gunnery mobs. As you're advancing, your opponent has to fall back from all this chaff. You can constantly be summoning trash with Count Noctilus. You can be pushing forward Necrofex. You can invest in some chevrons here to make these guys a bit better. Potentially, if you want something better with these leftover points, you could like ditch one of these pirate deckhands, bring a vampire fleet captain with Lord of Vampires in there, give him a Promethean so he's a little tankier, and like ditch all this, get more summons on the field. You can drop like Taunt because you don't really need it. You can even drop Curse of Undeath. Like you could strip some stuff off. Hell, you could drop Invocation of the Heck if you really wanted to. Just go like this. Something along these lines. You could probably strip off like that and just have your summons. But something along these lines. There's a bunch of options and things you can do here to just play super aggressively and push at your opponent. If you want to play more campy, bring mortars. You could still go with a build pretty similar to this one. I'd probably just ditch some of these guys. Probably ditch that guy. And, you know, get like 3 mortars. I don't think Queen Bess is very good in this matchup at all. The reason being that Queen Bess is very easy to snipe. Even double, I do believe 2 Arrows of Kurnus will put her down. And if you're not super quick on the draw with Invocation of the Heck, you're going to lose her immediately, which sucks. So, just something worth keeping in mind, I think. I do hope you guys found this informative. I hope you found it hopefully fun to watch. And if you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, as usual, don't hesitate to put them down. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.